On this week's episode, we talk about Batista taking a break, Kane versus Bryan, Wyatt manipulating the universe, Bad News Barrett, Lesnar, and a lot more on this edition of Byte That. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 35 of Byte That, the somewhat maybe international professional wrestling podcast where we talk about the ups and downs of that which we love, which is the world of professional wrestling. My name is Juan Velos. I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and as always I am joined by my brothers. First, all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, we have Ryan McNulty. How are you doing, man?
Juan, I'm doing good. You know, I'm just going to say the normal thing so that Keith can say the stupid thing.
But Keith only says magical things. And who is Keith, by the way? Well, he's from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So without further ado, Keith Poshik.
You know, Juan, I just wanted to share this with the audience. The other day, I was feeling a little constipated. So I went down to my local pharmacist and I got myself a Venema.
So, hey, if you're still listening, and I'm not sure why after that comment, you can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, where we have the weekly filler, which is Ryan's show, where he talks about all the things we weren't able to cover in the podcast. And next week, next Monday, we will be having our top 10 favorite wrestling video games. We've been having a lot of fun with that. Then after that, we will be talking about some of those moments in the podcast. There's going to be some controversy, so I'm looking forward to all your comments. You can check us out on Twitter at ByteThatCast, where we tweet during Raw, we tweet during wrestling events. And hey, if you like the show, let us know by leaving a comment on our YouTube videos and leave a review over at iTunes or Stitcher or rate. That really goes a long way for us. So hey, Keith, I have a question for you.
And I might have an answer.
Let's see here. What would you do if you're given an awesome opportunity? You form... You're part of this incredible stable that people love. You know, you're probably making a lot of money, and you haven't been around too long. Will you just walk out? You just take a sabbatical? You just leave? Do you do that?
You know, it seems like the reasonable thing to do. You know, come back or arrive, win Rumble, lose at WrestleMania, leave. I mean, sounds good to me.
Well, apparently that's what Batista's going to be doing after Extreme Rules, man. What do you think about that?
I'm actually not that butthurt about it. There's a lot of, talk about, what's Batista gonna do after WrestleMania and stuff like that. Well, turns out he's just gonna go. Now don't have to worry about Batista's spot, don't have to worry about him being, that constant threat for Daniel Bryan's WWE World Heavyweight title that nobody wanted to see. He's just kinda gone. If you don't know, there's rumors going around of him potentially leaving to go promote his Guardians of the Galaxy movie coming out in August. Keep that in mind, in August. So he's leaving in, what month is it? Or it'll be May to go promote a movie coming out in August. That's a bit of a long time. I don't know what kind of promotion thing they have going on, but seems like a bit of a long time. So well,
you got to keep in mind, maybe it's like an international market thing. So between all the markets for the movie's going to be coming out, it's going to take a while. Although it's probably going to be temporary, because if those reports are true, his contract is up for 2 years or something like that. But isn't it kind of weird how he comes back and then he's supposed to be loved, hated, reforms Evolution with Batista and Randy, and then just leaves. I have no idea how they're just going to write him off.
You would almost say that there's a few parallels here with Batista and Hollywood Rock in that sort of way where he came back and he's kind of all about Hollywood now, so there's some backlash there. But I agree with Keith. The movie's all the way in August and he's leaving to do promotional work for it. He's not even the main character. At least I don't think he's part of the main group of guys, but not. I really don't. Yeah, I don't expect him to be, the main focus of the movie. He just seems like sort of one of the faithful companions or something. I know nothing about Guardians of the Galaxy, so forgive me on that one.
Out in theaters this August.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Juan. Exactly. Go see it. It'll probably be good. It's Marvel. It can't be bad, right? But anyway, you mentioned writing Batista off. I think that's a positive right now because they're in a perfect position to write Batista off. He's with Evolution, right? Who's Evolution feuding with? The Shield. What's the whole goal of this? To put the Shield over, we all assume. So have Batista be the guy that gets sacrificed to the Shield. You want to get Roman Reigns over as hell and overnight? Just have him take out Batista to the point where Batista's out of action for 6 months.
Yeah, and that is a good idea. And one thing that we're all kind of overlooking here is, I mean, let's be honest, and this can obviously be a subject for another day, but there is a lack of some really good heels. And whether you like Batista as a wrestler or not, you cannot deny the fact that the dude has a ton of heat on him, and that is always a good thing. This whole Hollywood kind of, whatever, the way he dresses and all of that, he generates a lot of heat.
Like Pitbull?
Yes, exactly. He has far more heat than Randy Orton right now, so it is kind of a shame that he's leaving now because he is one of the few truly hated heels.
So to go, think a little businessy for a moment, do you think that's why they added Daniel Bryan into the match at WrestleMania 30? Because they knew Batista would be going away right away, and that would kind of just, feed all of the critics about him arriving, winning the title, and then just going away.
Obviously, they had to know. It's not like Batista's going to go to Vince 2 weeks before, hey, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back or something. So it absolutely makes sense. It's just weird, and like Ryan mentioned, my thing is that, like or hate Batista, when he's a bad guy, he's a bad guy. People hate him. The crowd gives a damn about booing him. And right now we need that, especially when we have the Yes Movement, we have John Cena, and we're going to be talking about this later, but Bray Wyatt, for example, who's a bad guy, isn't necessarily being treated as a bad guy by most of the crowd, as we saw in the WWE App Vote, which we'll also be getting to soon. So, leading back to this, what is the conclusion you expect to see at Extreme Rules in the match? Do you expect to see Evolution win, but then something happens afterwards, or what are we going to get?
I think it all depends on how soon Batista is leaving afterwards. The big spot at the end of the match could be on Batista, and that's what leads to him getting taken out, and that's how the Shield goes over.
He could just pull some crybaby thing and walk off. I mean, I think we all expect the Shield to win here, and if they don't win, it's pretty much a shame because
That's
I don't
crazy.
think anyone sees this Evolution reunion as anything long term. So they could write off Batista in a number of ways. I mean, if you look at the way he left back in, I think it was 2010,
more or
maybe?
less, yeah.
I think it was 2010. He was in the wheelchair and kind of going out kicking and screaming, or he quit, actually. So they could do something very similar to that, and then, that gets a ton of heat on him, and he's gonna come back probably after the movie, so maybe he'll still retain some of that heat when he makes his return.
I'm not sure exactly how relevant this is, but I wouldn't be 100% certain that the Shield's gonna win now, because WWE really likes to fuck with us. Think about the last time that they said, or the last time that we thought, hey, this guy's gonna win. There's no way that he can lose. It's just impossible. When was that? That was when the streak ended. So I think there is a chance that Evolution might win. It might seem crazy and insane, but there's still a chance.
We'll probably be talking more about this in the Extreme Rules episode, but it would make sense, actually, for Evolution to win, given the fact that, what did we just talk about? They need some heels, so what better way to get some heat than by beating the Shield, which, by the way, talking about the Shield, how awesome were Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in particular on the mic on Raw? I love how they spoke, and I love that they're together, but as weeks go by, they keep developing into their own individual characters even more and more, especially Rollins. Props to Rollins, because I've given him a lot of hate for being on the mic, as you can hear in a couple episodes, some things we try to forget. And now you listen to the guy, and I buy him as a main event player. Sorry, Brodus.
Yeah, their mic work is definitely awesome. I think we've all agree that Dean Ambrose has pretty much always been excellent on the mic, because he's just got that sort of weird, wacky charisma that he has. But definitely Seth Rollins, I think he was on the mic for sure the longest during that entire promo. And, he was tearing it up. He was really good. And I think he is far and away the most improved on the mic out of the three of them. And Roman Reigns is coming along too.
I disagree. I think Roman Reigns is he's come the farthest on the microphone, because at first he had only a couple words, and those words were "believe in the Shield." Then he'd just get like the impactful "I'm gonna say bitch" type thing, and then "believe in the Shield." And now he can actually say coherent sentences on the mic, so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna flip the coin and say he's about the same, really. Because when he got on the mic, I felt like I was in this really quick roller coaster with Ambrose and Seth Rollins, right? Like, I was in there. But then when Roman Reigns spoke, it felt like he was thinking, okay, so I gotta say ass, so I gotta say this and that, even though the delivery came off very well. And I mean, let's face it, regardless of how good he is on the microphone or not, the dude's gonna be a main event star, and they're pretty close, pretty soon. But he needs to work on that. It doesn't feel natural. I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
I definitely think they want to try and limit his mic time, because honestly, he's a big dude. He doesn't even really need to say a lot. And what he says, he usually says pretty good. I definitely think Rollins, to reiterate, has improved the most, and he's had a lot more mic time. I really think that they try and keep Roman Reigns to a man of few words, and I think it works better that way.
He's a really great exclamation point at the end of a promo. It's just like they say what they need to say, and then Roman Reigns comes in with whatever swear word and "believe in the Shield" he has to add.
No, I think you said that perfectly. He really is that exclamation point, because without a doubt, when he says something and he says it the right way, he's got that intimidation factor to him. So really, that's all he needs. And that'll work, and that'll get him to the main event, because he's got all the other tools that'll get him there as well.
Talking about other things in the main event scene that I think is pretty nice is the fact that, say hypothetically you didn't care about the Shield facing Evolution at Extreme Rules, guess what? There's actually other stuff you can check out. At the beginning of the show, and just before the show started, we actually found out some sad news, which is that Daniel Bryan's father passed away. Despite the fact that happened, Daniel Bryan was actually still at the beginning of the show. Obviously, he was very emotional. I mean, think about that. Just hearing everybody chant yes when you know that just happened, like, a couple hours before. You recently got married. Your wife is in the middle of the ring. And shortly after...
Talk about a frickin' roller coaster.
Daniel Bryan's life in the past year has been... He could have a documentary like the John Cena Experience type thing that came out a while ago of the past year. I would just love to see that. Although there's a similar thing like the journey to WrestleMania about Daniel Bryan. But during that segment, Stephanie McMahon actually came out, and it was actually kind of hard to see, because even you could tell she was tearing up. Obviously trying to hide the character, but let's face it, they're human beings. Nobody's perfect. But what happened during that is that Kane came out in triple tombstone. He gave Daniel Bryan 3 tombstones on the outside, on the steps, and on the announcer table to sort of write Daniel Bryan off for the rest of the show. But that match will be happening at Extreme Rules, and I sort of wanted to get your feedback, knowing that Triple H and Randy are taking a break from the championship scene. How do you feel about this match leading up based on what happened on Raw?
I thought that was the perfect way to do it, because it was sort of a two birds with one stone scenario for what tragedy would happen. I mean, poor Daniel Bryan, he probably had what was the best 2 weeks of his life, and then to have such a tragic thing happen to really kind of put a bad taste in your mouth after, you want to be celebrating with all this good fortune that's happened. But I think they made the right move here, which they're not only elevating this feud and really cranking up the intensity, because there was really, aside from their Team Hell No history, there wasn't really anything between them recently. So you're amping up the volume on their feud right away, and you're also giving Daniel Bryan time to mourn his loss and take a little bit of a break. So I thought that was absolutely the best approach.
Yeah, that segment was everything it needed to be. It was a way for Daniel Bryan to get written off the rest of the show so he can get on the next flight out and be with his family, understandably. But it kind of also got that feud going between Daniel Bryan and the Authority at the same time, with Stephanie McMahon in the ring doing the whole, like, you could tell she was kind of being sincere, but at the same time she was being a bit sarcastic. Now in wrestling logic, she's even holding the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I don't know if that's just a thing or they're going to be like moving forward with that, but that's how it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, is Stephanie McMahon holding the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? Is that a sign of things to come? That's what I leave to the table.
Her husband couldn't do it, so damn it, she
Find out next week on Monday Night Raw. No, but I thought the best thing about that segment is that I was worried that they were going to play it off kind of like Paul Bearer's passing, although that was a whole different thing. But I thought that they were going to base the segment directly on the fact that Daniel Bryan's father passed away. Now, obviously, you could tell everybody knew, but they didn't openly talk about it. They just sort of let it be like, you know what? Everybody knows this happened. We don't need to explain it. And you could tell that Stephanie's character in her head was saying, stop Kane because of everything that happened. But to avoid having her turn face, she just came off as like this sarcastic, I don't want this to happen, but I'm enjoying it at the same time character, and I like that.
Yeah, I think it was right not to make any mention of it because, you know, his father didn't have anything to do with WWE, so he doesn't need to be involved in any type of storyline. So that's absolutely the best move to make there.
Now, moving on to another storyline that certainly progressed and surprisingly close to show. I didn't think it was going to be the very last thing on Raw. The people had a vote, man. People power. We got the WWE app. If you got it, I don't know if you guys, there's like this Google market. There's like this market where you can download stuff for free, as WWE always tells us. And you had the option of choosing Luke Harper with like a little bonus. Second Luke Harper would involve Eric Rowan, or you could choose the entire Wyatt family to take on one John Cena. So at the end of Raw, it was John Cena against the selection of the crowd. Oddly enough, I thought it was going to be Bray Wyatt, then Bray Wyatt and another member. But no, they actually chose Luke Harper as like that one guy that you're stuck with him. It didn't matter who you choose, man. Eric Rowan is an option. It's like he's there in the beginning, and at the end, it's like, you know what? We're giving you Bray and Luke. Might as well give you the other guy. But Luke Harper is the man. So, Keith, I want to take this to you, man, because I know we have some interesting thoughts about the selection. As we clearly saw, Cena was a little sad when he found out what his match option was, and the crowd decided that. So what's up with that?
I think that this app vote is basically the justification that we've been looking for, that everything is changing. Like, think about the weight of that vote. Over 50% of the WWE universe chose for John Cena, one of the top baby faces in the company, to go against a stable of 3 heels. I don't think that's ever happened before. Usually that kind of thing is like saved for a general manager trying to get one over on the baby face and get him, or make him like overcome the odds. But the fans turned against a babyface for someone who's supposed to be a bad guy. I think that, like, going forward, that's going to be one of those big moments that we look back on and be like, oh, this is a good sign that everything changed.
The funny part is, if it was any other wrestler that wasn't John Cena, they would turn heel the next week. They would turn on the crowd, like, you chose this, and like this and that, screw you. But because it's John Cena...
How do you know Cena's not going to do that? How do you know that's not going to happen,
It's never going to happen.
First of all,
was the streak going to end? Answer me that. Was the streak going to end this year?
Does the streak provide Make-A-Wish wishes? No.
How do you know that?
Moving on.
All right, to get my point in, first of all, it was really funny to see John Cena's facial reaction when he saw, that vote go through, and he's just looking out at the crowd like, seriously, guys? Like, you're doing this to me right now? But this was a very interesting vote. They've never really sort of had this dynamic before. This was a very interesting thing. They really made this intriguing to have this sort of vote where you're sort of voting against the babyface. And I just think the way that they set it up, and they really the way that they sort of wrote the show, they were sort of pushing for the 3-on-1 no matter what. I mean, I feel like even a Cena fan would feel tempted to do the 3-on-1 just to see what would happen. I feel like...
I mean, if you look at the
even
numbers...
Even if you like him, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers, like, there was still like 34% of people that voted just for that 1-on-1, so there was still the Cena fans like, no, don't put him in a 3-on-1 handicap match, but there was just the majority of the people outweighed those people.
I think that was a theme throughout the whole show, like, break it down. No, like, throughout the whole show, it's almost as if they switched the heels and faces. Case in point, you know, I can bring up the whole thing with Cesaro and Heyman. Like, these scenarios where, you know, one guy's supposed to be booed. Like, Cesaro, when he came out, obvious heel, but then with the whole thing regarding Swagger, he's a face again. But, like, 2 minutes ago, the guy was a freaking heel taking on Rob Van Dam. So it's like, what's going on here? Even though I like that, it's weird because it seems inconsistent. Although at the end of the show, which we're talking about right now, Bray Wyatt, I mean, the man was basically playing to the crowd, and they were reacting with him. They love the guy.
One quick note on this whole faces and heels dynamic. I mean, we talked several months ago about Vince McMahon saying that there's no longer faces and heels, and it's sort of, you know, people cheer who they want to cheer. And even, I believe recently at, I don't know what panel it was, but Dolph Ziggler spoke, I think, and he said some things about how, you know, there's not bad guys and good guys. People kind of just go out, and if you want to cheer me, cheer me. If you don't want to cheer me, then, you know, I'm a bad guy. So it's sort of the audience now just kind of chooses. How smart that is, that, you know, that remains to be seen. But yeah, to go back into Bray Wyatt, I mean, he has just been, first of all, masterful on the mic. The promo that he cut this week was absolutely amazing, and I really like this dynamic that they're playing into the storyline. And I'm gonna, you know, bring this to you guys after I finish making my point. All right, we all see how the crowd is getting behind the Wyatt family. And now I like how they're incorporating this into the story where even though the crowd is really just cheering Bray Wyatt because they like him, they're acting like Bray Wyatt is sort of converting people to his followers. So all the people that are cheering him, it's like everywhere he goes, he's taking a few more with him. So the crowd reaction is now actually a part of the storyline. And I think this is a really awesome dynamic, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this.
I think that's what the WWE should do. It's ingenious because instead of worrying about good guys or bad guys, it's like, hey, let's see how we can just manipulate them into reacting to what I'm doing. However they want to react, it doesn't matter. As long as they're reacting, I think everybody wins.
It solves one of the biggest problems that the WWE's had in the past. The example that comes to my mind is when The Undertaker was around on SmackDown in, I think it was around 2004, when they tried to turn him into a heel, but everybody would keep cheering The Undertaker over and over and over, and it just wouldn't work. If everybody decided that, like, Bray Wyatt is the guy and they're gonna cheer him out of every freaking building he goes into, now it works because now they're his followers. They can clap along with his music. They can sway singing The Whole World in His Hands, and it all plays right into the WWE's hands with the storyline.
It almost seems like it's slowly turning into a melody. I know it sounds weird, but progressively we're getting a lot more characters that have fan interaction, like Dean O'Brien with the yes, Emma with the hand gestures, Bray Wyatt now with this. And it's nice because that was part of the Attitude Era. And that was part of a lot of the things that the people love. Like, oh, you didn't know? There were a lot of things that, you know, when Val Venus came out, you were waiting for, you know, the panning to the crowd, to the ladies or something. So it's nice. I love that we're getting that again.
Yeah. Plus, it just plays so nicely into the actual story between Wyatt and Cena. Like, think about it. So, at first at WrestleMania, Bray Wyatt was going after John Cena's legacy. He was trying to get out that monster. Bray Wyatt lost. So what is he going to do now? He's going to turn everybody against John Cena. They keep saying that line in a promo, John, what are you going to do when I take everything away? That's exactly what they're doing with this whole fan interaction side of it.
To sort of knit this up in a nice little bow, I think the best way to put this is they're trying, and successfully, turning the crowd into a character.
Yeah.
And to go along with that, did you guys actually watch the post-Raw show on the network?
No, I didn't see it this week.
I was watching Raw with a friend of mine, and afterwards we kept watching it. It was his first time watching the post-show. It's like my second or third. And it was amazing how much storyline progression they had after the show. So in the panel, it was Alex Riley, Booker T, it was Josh Matthews, and Dolph Ziggler. And Dolph Ziggler was almost breaking kayfabe in the way that he was saying everything I was thinking. Oh, so Bray Wyatt's manipulating the crowd to his favor. Everything we're talking right now, a WWE superstar was saying that in a live broadcast. And they were applying logic to that. And it was nice because I was like, okay, so instead of doing what they were doing years ago, which is that whenever we have our little theories, WWE just goes, no, we're going the other route. They seem to be embracing crowd reaction. I mean, Batista, I think, is probably the moment that really shifted completely, which is just like, you know what, as long as people react, who cares who's heel, who's face? Are they having a good time? Are they going to the shows? Are they watching TV? Great. That's what needs to friggin' happen. And you know what else needs to happen? This week's Tweet of the Week! Tweet of
the Week! That's right. It's the weekly money shot time. It's Tweet of the Week. Now, this week's Tweet of the Week, well, it's not exactly a tweet. Went back to the old r/squared circle again. God, that place is a gold mine. If you don't go there, go. It'll keep you entertained for days upon days. But anyway, this week's Tweet of the Week is from Forget the Sky. That is Forget the Sky, all one word. And this week's Tweet of the Week is, somewhere, Shane O'Mac is rubbing his balls, telling Daniel Bryan, you got off lightly.
Tweet of the Week! Tweet of the Week! Thank you, Keith, for that testy Tweet of the Week. And remember, folks, you can follow us on Twitter at ByteThatCast, where we tweet during Raw and other wrestling events. And once again, remember, next Monday, top 10 favorite wrestling video games on YouTube. All 10 moments are going to be in just one video, not like our WrestleMania countdown. We split that into 3 parts, which you can check out right now. The top 10, one video.
We're blowing our load in one big shot.
Yeah, one shot, and there's going to be footage. It's going to be a great time. Now, before the show started, I mentioned to these fine gentlemen here that I wanted a couple minutes to bring something up. Alexander Rusev has been on Raw for quite a while now. He's still doing his squash matches. You know, he's still getting started and all that. But there's a lot of hate on this guy, and I'm just thinking to myself, why? I think a lot more people like Lana than Alexander Rusev for many obvious reasons. But the fact of the matter is that somebody in that group is getting a reaction from the crowd, and it's nice that we're getting a monster, but it's not a monster that's yelling, that's not going all crazy. And I think that if the WWE is giving us all these things that we mentioned in the previous segments today, we should give them a shot. You know, give Alexander Rusev a shot. If you've seen this guy wrestle, sadly, even his time in NXT was sort of similar with the squash matches. But based on the couple moves that the guy does, you can tell he's a pretty good worker. His kicks are good. His fighting style's different. So I think it's just a matter of give the guy time. I think him and Lana have great chemistry. And I want to take it over to you, Keith. Do you feel are you siding on what I'm saying, which you better be, because if not, I'm going to punch you in the face? Or are you siding with everybody else in the way that he should be future endeavored?
Well, I'd like to disclaim this with I freaking love Rusev. I think he's mastered those little things in the ring, like having a stone cold face while he's got his finishing move on and stuff like that. But
Talk
I think
about
it's
my
the way
face, boy.
What? But I think it's the way that they're booking Rusev right now. Like, we've been burnt before on this type of thing. At Extreme Rules, Alexander Rusev is going to be in a 2-on-1 handicap match against Xavier Woods and R-Truth, who came in and then just got handicap match after handicap match after handicap match when he
Brock
debuted.
Lesnar?
Ryback. True. But I'm talking about Ryback in this aspect. Like, tell me the difference between Ryback when he debuted and Alexander Rusev that doesn't involve Lana.
There isn't much difference, and I think I like the fact that Juan actually brought up Brock Lesnar, because you look at those two guys and you see that one worked out really well and one did not work out nearly as well. But I think the squash matches really they don't do too much. I mean, they show you, oh, this guy's powerful and everything. The true test is when this guy has to work, a 10-minute plus match. That's when we really know how good this guy really is. And we haven't seen that yet, and that's why I agree with Juan that we really just need to hold off, let him do his squash matches run until he actually ends up feuding with somebody who we, care about and who we know. Sorry, Xavier Woods.
Yeah.
I do love you, though. Until someone who WWE sees as relevant. And also, I mean, we saw him in the Royal Rumble. This guy can be impressive, so let's wait and see what he can actually do.
Exactly, and what did we mention today? We have the Shield Evolution, Dana Bryan and Kane, Wyatt Cena. Now there's an Intercontinental Championship tournament. There's a lot of stuff happening. So, say hypothetically, we took him out of these squash matches, they're probably not going to fit him into anything else. At least we're getting the crowd. I think the purpose of all this is not even the matches, but the interaction, the little things between Lana and Rusev. Like Keith mentioned last week, he doesn't let go of the finishing move until she comes close. And they have that sort of like Abyss James Mitchell thing, which is before he hits the finisher, she almost goes like click doomsday with him. So I think that once we get it so that the crowd is behind that.
Yes, he just compared Lana to James Mitchell.
Yes, I mean, of course, but I mean, you did talk about Boston Tweet of the Week, so yeah, once the crowd is behind that, once the crowd makes it obvious that they know the interaction that's going on between them, then I think we'll see the next step. But it's going to be a long while. We have Bo Dallas coming up. We have Adam Rose coming up. I don't even know how they hope to really do all these things. Raw's going to have to be a 5-hour show. And
they still wouldn't do anything with him.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But one guy that they do seem to be finally doing something with, and that finally, man, this makes me so happy, the crowd are really buying into him, is Bad News Barrett. I mean, Wade Barrett has had the most unorthodox WWE career. The guy at one point was just like inches away from becoming champion, and then it's like, bam, you're at the very bottom of the company. So now that...
Then he was in the core.
Very bottom of the company, man. Clem Layfield's doing better than he is.
So, yeah, it's awesome to see Barrett sort of come into his own now, because exactly, this guy's had so many ups and downs. I mean, we all thought he was going to have this epic comeback when they had probably one of the most well-produced vignettes ever, when they had those bare-knuckle fighter vignettes of Barrett. Those were some of the coolest things they ever made. And then he debuts on SmackDown and does nothing for the longest time. But now it seems like he's finally connected with the crowd, and the crowd's kind of really getting into this Bad News Barrett gimmick. And who would have thought the JBL and Cole show would be the resurgence of Wade Barrett's career?
But here's my question about this whole Bad News Barrett thing. History's just repeating itself. Like, yeah, Bad News Barrett is getting momentum and stuff like that, but he's still going for the Intercontinental title. Wade Barrett himself has been in this position about 3 or 4 times already. He wins the Intercontinental title, then he falls back into obscurity. Like, how is this just not history happening over again?
Alright, so question, was it Big E that actually beat Wade Barrett for the Intercontinental title?
No, he won it from Curtis Axel back during when he
that's right.
meant something. Yeah, exactly. Half of Rybaxel, turns out.
But to add to your point, I do agree that if he does win the Intercontinental title again, he's sort of just going back into the same spot as before. Who knows what they're going to do? Because, like I said, months and months ago when Big E won it, they try and act like the Intercontinental title is important, and then it just falls off. So really, at this point, it's actually a bad thing to be Intercontinental Champion. You're better off not having the title because you might be able to shoot up the ranks randomly if they need you. But sort of having that title just kind of holds you in one spot.
I see what you did there.
So what you're saying, Ryan, is that Barrett winning the championship is bad news.
I actually did not do that on purpose at all. Did I say that?
Yes.
Did I say bad news?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Wow, I'm impressed with my subconscious, I guess.
At least somebody is. No, but it's true. It's great. I love you, man. No, but I think the thing to take away from that match was how much people were into Wade Barrett and how much they didn't care about Sheamus. Like, Sheamus, he's over, man. I will make the argument that the people are past Sheamus. They are way past him.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about that match is Sheamus, and it's just how much momentum he hasn't gotten or he's lost since he's come back. Sheamus has been kind of doing nothing since he returned from his injury, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere fast.
Well, the thing about Sheamus is, I think the guy is a great worker, and he's a physical guy and has some great matches, especially with other physical wrestlers.
Nice.
So I take none of that away from him. Oh yeah, hell of an ass on that one. The problem is he really never connected with the crowd, and I think that's just why they finally realized that it isn't working. How many Sheamus shirts do you really see aside from the little kids? He hasn't really, he's just John Cena Jr. or Friday Cena, what Keith likes to call him. And I think they've kind of realized that they need to freshen him up a little bit. And it was really cool to see Barrett just get a clean win over Sheamus, because it's clear something he's doing is clicking.
So let me ask you, how the hell do you freshen Sheamus up?
He needs to not be all about, he needs to stop saying fella, first of all, because the guy in who he is in the ring is not who he is outside the ring. And I think that's the problem. Who he is in the ring is who he needs to be on the outside. He needs to be that tough guy that when he walks into a room, nobody wants to mess with him, but he's all smiles and fella and let's grab a pint. And I think that's where the disconnect is.
So do you think that Wade Barrett's old gimmick would work with Sheamus? The whole fighter thing and just come and beat people up?
Or just Finley, really, because that was pretty much Finley's gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. I mean, he basically can be Finley, but had to have slightly his own twist to it, just to not completely rip off the character.
Sheamus, and I love to fight.
But even if he had that music, even if he had Finley's music, I think that would be awesome. Like, he should just be a younger Finley.
Although, let's face it, really, he's not in a bad spot. I mean, he's a guy that when he's on Raw, he still gets a reaction. I mean, he probably gets a pretty good paycheck. He probably sells a couple of things. He's in the commercials. It's nice that we are getting to the point where we have all the guys we mentioned at the first half, and we actually have these guys sort of sprinkled around that people still know, even if they're not doing much, but they're still there.
Is that a good spot, though? Because you could literally take everything you said and apply it to someone like The Miz.
But The Miz is barely on
he's
television.
In a good spot.
I mean, really.
But he still probably collects a paycheck. He's still in the commercials. He still gets his little spot.
If you were in their position, man.
Personally, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
I guess if money was what I was going for, then no, that wouldn't be a thing. But if you want to be a star and want to be that big guy, then no, that would be terrible. Like, look at Zack Ryder.
At those guys.
He's not happy collecting just a paycheck. He wants to be somebody. If he didn't, he wouldn't have made those latest YouTube videos.
I do look at those guys, though, and I feel like they always sort of have a place. Like WWE, whether they're on the show a little bit or, a lot, WWE, they are WWE guys, and they sort of always will sort of take care of them. I don't see them ever just releasing The Miz or Sheamus. They've built those guys up enough, and maybe they're not going to be in the limelight, or they may not always get to be in the main event, but I feel like they're still sort of those utility guys that they they like to have.
And the fact of the matter is, this isn't the first time it's happened. I mean, look back to Mr. Perfect. Even controversial, Jake the Snake Roberts. These are guys that were never the champion of the company, yet everybody knew about them. Every time they came out, they got a reaction, or people at least knew how they were. So it's part of what professional wrestling really is. So that's why I'm not really against it, because keep in mind, we talk about Raw, but there's house shows, there's superstars, there's main event, there's all these local media appearances they got to do. So they got to divide those guys somehow.
And let's not forget, both of these guys have been WWE champions, so they should be fortunate that they have that.
I don't know. I look at it from the different side of things. Like, yeah, The Miz was the WWE champion and he main evented WrestleMania, but what has he done since? The wrestling business seems like a very what have you done for me lately or style thing, and the answer is really not much.
I mean, there's both sides of the coin are always going to apply, because at one point, I mean, if you brought up CM Punk right now, I mean, CM Punk is the perfect example of this kind of situation, which is like, should you be satisfied with what you've done or what you want to do? Obviously, this could be a 4-hour topic, but what matters is that these guys are at least getting involved. They're getting reactions. And hey, maybe they'll get a character change. Maybe they'll become Clem Layfield Jr. or something.
I think the key to all of this is that if you want to stay at the top, you gotta have the crowd keep you at the top. I mean, Austin never fell back down because the crowd always went nuts for him. So that's sort of the golden ticket right there.
Plus, one thing we're completely leaving out is we don't know these guys personally, so we don't know what they say backstage. What if, hypothetically, just saying, what if I'm The Miz and I say, you know what? Even though in interviews he said he's not satisfied, but say he was just like, you know what? I'll be this media guy. I'll be all this stuff. I was to the top. What up, dog?
Dude, we're internet wrestling fans. We know everything. Don't you know that?
Oh crap! I mean,
yeah.
Wait, freaking Dean Ambrose is still United States champion, but he doesn't even come up with the championship, man. What the hell? He should be champion.
Hashtag Titty Master.
Oh yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Freaking wait, why yay for really?
Context.
Something else I do want to mention is that we have now really seen Paige become a regular part of the Raw roster. So this week she took on Oksana in what was actually not a bad match, although the crowd really just couldn't care less about the match itself. Like, they tried sleeper holds and the people weren't, clapping for her or anything. Based off of that, I wanted to sort of ask you guys a question. Given the diva situation, the diva scenario, where for years now, we're talking many years, like 4 or 5, people got used to that being the bathroom break. Let's be honest here. How many people joke about that? And now that we have AJ, who's gone, but maybe she'll come back in like a European tour or something. But now that we have Paige and some of the NXT divas, do you think that they have a shot at breaking that barrier when they come up to the main roster?
One thing that I've noticed since Paige's debut, basically, is that the divas have been getting 2 segments. Like, this week on Raw, there was the Emma and Layla match, and then there was Paige and Oksana. So the divas are getting more time, but it's just not in, like, for that one match. And I think that's the big difference between them performing at NXT and then moving up to the main roster. That's time. They can go have these great, like, 15, 20-minute matches at NXT, but now they have to, like, stay at that level, but they only get 7 minutes, so they can't really shine in the same way that they do.
Yeah, exactly. And I did notice that they really have been doing those 2 diva segments on Raw, and I don't know if that's just a temporary thing because they're also trying to build Paige while having the other divas who were previously on the roster have their time too. So I don't know, or if this is going to be something we see every single week. It's hard for them to sort of work a match to get people to care in the very short amount of time that they have. It's easy to sort of look at NXT and be like, wow, there must be something in the water over there because the matches are 100 times better and the crowd is all into it. But it's really just the circumstance.
So final question about this then. Because people compare everybody to Trish and Lita, do you think that Trish and Lita accidentally created the standard so every other diva is going to be compared to them, no matter how hard they try to be something else?
It doesn't matter what situation you're in, you're always going to compare somebody to somebody else. It's the same way that we compare Daniel Bryan to Stone Cold Steve Austin, or like John Cena to Hulk Hogan. It's just the way things are. But Trish and Lita, they're the gold standard of the Divas division. Of course you're going to compare people to that. Now, that comparison in a couple of years might be Paige and Emma. They have the big Divas feud that really transcends everything else.
Nostalgia is a powerful thing. I mean, we all fondly look back at Trish and Lita, but even they had some matches back then that the crowd just didn't care about. Obviously, when Trish and Lita themselves actually locked up, people paid attention. It's really the character and getting people to care. They have to be invested in these divas, and that's what did happen with AJ. The only problem with that was the fact that AJ didn't have really a great rival that the crowd equally cared about.
Yeah, and I mean, they tried with Caitlyn, but it really just sort of didn't work out. Although I think Caitlyn was trying really hard. It was a situation where there wasn't a yin and yang. They were kind of similar.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that there's such a short turnaround on a lot of these divas. Most of them are only here for a couple of years. You had the case with Trish and Lita where they were both in it for the long haul. So it seems like we think AJ's in that spot. So it's safe to think that Paige is probably going to be someone who's like that.
But you said yin and yang, and I think that's interesting because is there a bigger yin and yang than Paige and Emma right now?
No, absolutely. But that's why I'm saying the things between AJ and Caitlyn didn't work out because you had two divas that were trying to be different than the rest of the divas. The problem was that they were kind of similar, while Emma is the bubbly personality that can wrestle, and Paige is the anti-diva. So you actually have two different characters. You look at them, and physically speaking, they're completely different. You know, you're not going to mistake one for the other. So I think it's going to be a great thing. Although we have to give them time. Emma's getting some hate, but I mean, it's part of the growth of characters on TV, much like Rusev. But before we end the show, I actually want to bring up a question from the brother of the show, Roach McPoach, on Twitter. He asks,
the fourth biter. Yeah. Roach McPoach is our honorary fourth bitey.
Keep wearing that Matic mask,
at
man.
This point.
And he asks, should I do this in the Keith voice? Nah. You guys mentioned this at one point, and I want to bring it back up. Brock winning the title at SummerSlam would be best for business, and it would make the title look more like a UFC title that gets defended only twice a year and has a lot of prestige. What's our take on that? Now, I thought that was interesting because the moment I read it, I was actually all game for it. Because I'm like, with all these storylines that are going on, I think that the WWE could actually afford a champion that exclusively defends the championship every now and then and sort of just builds up to that match instead of just it's going to be defended every month or every random Raw.
It definitely adds a bunch of prestige, and the WWE is kind of already built for that to happen because, yeah, we have a pay-per-view every month, but we have the 4 big pay-per-views a year. That's where the title could be defended at the Royal Rumble, at WrestleMania, at SummerSlam, at Survivor Series. Plus, it gives them a ton of time to actually build these stories up and make them meaningful. So if say Daniel Bryan wins at WrestleMania, the night after they start building a feud that will end at SummerSlam, then that's when the big match happens. So basically, I'm all for this. I think it's a really good idea.
So in this modern era, do you think it's okay to say if Brock Lesnar's champion to just have it go weeks without even seeing the champion? I mean, we know Paul Heyman is going to be his manager, so he could be carrying the belts around maybe, but is this a good idea to have the champion off the show for such long spans of time? I mean, think about people who complained about The Rock when he was off the show for just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but there's a big difference there. The Rock was a good guy that was saying, hey, you know, I'm back to the... Okay, I'm gone. You won't see me for a long while. Brock Lesnar conquered the streak. Brock Lesnar conquered 5 hours later. Brock Lesnar's a completely different scenario. This is a guy that his gimmick, his character is that he arrives, You know, like eat, sleep, conquer the streak, and leave, or whatever the hell. That is his character, so it would absolutely make sense for him to win. And it's like, when you guys give me a worthy opponent, then I'll defend it.
Plus, if we're going to use the Brock Lesnar example, like you said, Ryan, there's Paul Heyman. Brock Lesnar might not show up every week, but that doesn't mean Paul Heyman can't go around with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, talk a lot of trash and like, hey, I'm not the champion. What are you going to do? I'm just going to sick my monster on you. So in Brock Lesnar's respect, it could actually work.
Okay, so let's say he wins the belt. I mean, can you go... How long do you go? Because obviously Lesnar broke this streak. So you want to keep him as... Yes, so you want to keep him as built up as possible. You really don't want him to lose any momentum. So if he wins the belt, then it's got to be a long reign. And this long reign would probably go till WrestleMania. So that's SummerSlam to Mania without the champion on TV most of the time. Can they afford to do that for that long? Or do you do a short run and just kill his momentum? It's almost worse to have the belt if you're going to have to take it off him so soon.
Once again, with Paul Heyman, yeah, they could totally do it. Brock Lesnar doesn't need to be there every single week. Paul Heyman could be there representing them. And if somebody like is going for the title, they could put him in a feud against Cesaro, the other Paul Heyman guy, and build Cesaro at the exact same time.
I feel like this would have been better served back when there were the two championships, because then the World Heavyweight could kind of come in and be a really big title. But I mean, I guess it would enhance the Intercontinental title, maybe, but I don't know if there's anything that can ever be done to make that title important again.
If there was still that second champion, there would be no prestige to that title if it just went away for X amount of time. They might as well just merge it into one title and it gets defended every single month then.
I mean, I will agree, because especially now with the pre and post shows, they're trying to make Raw and wrestling as a whole be more real. Like, even my friend, who's a big a sports guy outside of wrestling, when he was watching the post show, he was like, whoa, it feels like I'm watching an NFL game, you know, where they're trying to break it down. So I was like, it's working. You're actually getting people to think about a product the exact same way you want them to. How do you take that a step further? Apply that to the actual product. You have a guy whose contract itself is a storyline. You put the championship on the guy, and hey, guess what? If in a short amount of time it doesn't work, you just take the strap off him. But if it works, then run with it. You know, he's supposed to be hated. They can play it off to when they see him, they want to throw shit into the ring. Not literally, but they want to throw junk into the ring. You know? You know, they want to do that because they're pissed that they're not seeing their champion. So it absolutely would be interesting. Would it be best for business? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to continue watching WWE whether they do this or not. So I'm obviously not the audience. I don't think any of us here are. But it would be interesting to sort of get a casual fan's perspective on if they would tune in knowing that the championship's not going to be defended at, you know, Extreme Rules or any of the shows between the big ones. So thank you, Roach McPooch, for the question. Remember, you can send us a tweet if you have any questions. So without further ado, Ryan, take us away, my friend.
We want to thank you for tuning into this week's edition of Byte That. Before you go, I got a few things I want to share with you. As always, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. This Monday, we're putting up our top 10 favorite wrestling video games video. You will not want to miss that. And then on next week's show, we're going to tell you why we put each game where on that list. Also, this Saturday, I'll be putting up another edition of the Weekly Filler, where I'll talk about several top headlines in wrestling that we didn't get to cover on this week's show. Also, Juan just put up a Legends House review that you guys should check out. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it. What are you guys doing? Anyway, follow us on Twitter at ByteThatCast. We tweet during Raw. We tweet during pay-per-views. So you want to catch everything we say during those events. It's always hilarious. And don't forget, iTunes and Stitcher. That's a thing that we do. If you subscribe to either of those, as soon as the show's up, guess what? It goes right to your mobile device or whatever device you're listening to us on. And don't forget to write us a review and rate us on those two channels, because you know what? That does a lot for us. I'm done with this outro. I'll see you guys next week.